CM Punk has sent a brutal backstage message to WWE management after major creative clashes behind the scenes. Even after main eventing WrestleMania 42 against Roman Reigns, the Second City Saint has allegedly been pulled from television because Triple H and the creative team have no clear plans for him. But stay tuned, because Punk demanded a feud with one top superstar to completely shake up WWE's creative direction. CM Punk has been away from WWE programming since the April 20 episode of Raw, one night after losing the World Heavyweight Championship to Roman Reigns in the main event of WrestleMania 42. That is the last time anyone in the WWE universe saw him on television. No farewell speech, no extended angle, no teaser for what comes next, just gone. Reigns captured the WWE World Heavyweight Championship on Sunday night, defeating CM Punk in the main event of WrestleMania 42 at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, Nevada. Reigns outlasted Punk in a 33-minute epic, putting a WWE title around his waist for the first time in over 2 years. That match, the 6-match card, featured 3 title changes, headlined by Roman Reigns dethroning CM Punk in an epic World Heavyweight Championship match. It was the kind of match that closes out a chapter. And after a 33-minute war, CM Punk walked off the biggest stage WWE has, and hasn't been seen since. Punk held the World Heavyweight Championship for 169 days before dropping the title to Reigns at WrestleMania. 169 days of carrying the belt, carrying the storylines, carrying Monday Night Raw on his back. And then nothing. He's largely been missing from TV since losing the World Heavyweight Championship to Roman Reigns at that very event, and it's led to some questions. The good news is there are no issues, and scheduling changes are to blame. But it doesn't feel like nothing. It feels like a statement. Multiple reports from PW Insider indicate CM Punk was not backstage at WWE Backlash, and was not expected to appear on the Monday Night Raw episode in Knoxville. Punk had been absent from WWE TV since confronting Cody Rhodes on the Raw after WrestleMania 42. He remains featured on the promotional poster for Clash in Italy, despite the ongoing absence. There is something deeply telling about that image. CM Punk's face still plastered across the promotional material for an event he has not been booked for and is not expected to appear at. WWE still needs his name, still needs the draw that he brings. And yet the man himself is nowhere to be found on their TV screens week after week. One of WWE's top main event stars has been removed from advertising for the upcoming European Summer Tour. It's unclear when exactly he'll return, but the 47-year-old superstar had been advertised for several summer shows overseas. But in an updated post, CM Punk is no longer seen on the graphic, quietly removed. Not with a bang, not with a formal announcement, just quietly scrubbed from the list of names heading to Europe. And in the world of professional wrestling, where subtlety is not exactly a common currency, a quiet removal screams louder than any press release ever could. He is still advertised for Monday Night Raw episodes in July and early August. Punk is expected to return before the 2-day SummerSlam event on August 1-2. So the plan, at least on paper, is for Punk to be back in time for SummerSlam weekend. The marquee pay-per-view takes place at US Bank Stadium in Minneapolis, Minnesota, on the August 1-2 weekend. That's a long time between WrestleMania and SummerSlam. That is months of one of the most compelling performers on the roster sitting at home, while the creative machine churns ahead without him. And the question that the internet is asking, the one that fans and analysts and people deep in the wrestling business keep circling back to, is why? Why is CM Punk absent? Why now? And more importantly, is this absence saying something that no one is willing to say out loud? Punk is simply awaiting creative to return to WWE TV. That's the official line. And on the surface, it sounds perfectly reasonable. Talent takes time off after big matches. Storylines get recalibrated. Rosters shift. These are the rhythms of the wrestling business. But CM Punk is not just any talent. And his history with WWE creative is not ordinary. There is a pattern to how this man reacts when the company's plans don't align with his vision. And that pattern stretches back a very long way. CM Punk competed at SummerSlam 2024, a loss to Drew McIntyre, and SummerSlam 2025, a victory over Gunther. He has been at the center of WWE's biggest events for 2 consecutive years running. He has been a model employee contractor for WWE, headlining WrestleMania multiple times, including absolutely carrying this year's show in Las Vegas. And now, in the weeks that follow the biggest show of the year, he's gone. That tells you something about where WWE Creative currently stands and how CM Punk feels about it. To understand what CM Punk is saying right now, through his absence, through his silence, through the conspicuous gap in the Monday Night Raw card every week since WrestleMania, you have to understand what he said before WrestleMania. Because weeks before the biggest match of his second run, Punk was already making noise about how WWE tells its stories. Speaking on Morning Mosh Pit on February 27, 2026, the Chicago native expressed his frustration with the repetitive nature of certain storylines and event formats. Punk specifically took aim at the narrative device where rivals are forced to team up before a major match, a situation he may face as he prepares for his confirmed WrestleMania 42 main event against Roman Reigns. This wasn't a throwaway comment. This was Punk, who never says anything by accident, going on a Chicago radio show and taking direct aim at one of the most tired tropes in professional wrestling storytelling. The forced tag team, the can they coexist angle, the idea that two men who genuinely want to destroy each other must first partner up and learn to tolerate one another, before finally being allowed to fight. CM Punk has spoken out against a common WWE storyline trope that has long frustrated fans, the idea of two top stars who are feuding being forced to team up as a makeshift tag team and try to coexist in the lead-up to their big match. Punk believes this plot device feels outdated and unnatural, and says he has no interest in teaming with his WrestleMania 42 opponent Roman Reigns in the weeks leading up to their match. And this was not just theoretical frustration. This was Punk reacting to something that had literally already happened. Punk and Reigns teamed together at Survivor Series War Games last November. Despite their growing tensions, WWE had already gone down that road, forced the two men who would headline WrestleMania together into a tag match months earlier. And Punk was on record, publicly, saying he hated it, saying it was lazy, saying in his words to shut up about coexisting. The quote itself is remarkable for what it says about how he views the creative process. I'm not trying to tag with Roman over the next 8 weeks. Can they coexist? Man, shut up. The answer is no, and I'll see you in Las Vegas. That is not a man who is quietly accepting the scripts being handed to him. That is a man who is pushing back in the public forum, on a radio show, in his own city, against creative decisions that he thinks are beneath the product and beneath his level. But he didn't stop there. Punk added, "We end the show with Elimination Chamber. Let's get rid of that too." He is critiquing not just individual storyline choices, but the structural habits of WWE television itself, the pay-per-view calendar, the episodic booking philosophy, the reliance on formulas that audiences have seen so many times they can recite the beats in their sleep. This trope of rivals being booked into a tag team has been used frequently in WWE over the years, especially in high-profile feuds involving top stars like John Cena. Fans have often found these storylines to feel forced and unbelievable, as the tension and animosity between the two wrestlers usually feels at odds with them having to work together. Punk wasn't just speaking for himself on that radio show. He was speaking for the portion of the fan base and the locker room who have been watching this particular creative wheel spin in the same rut for years. And then there was the Pat McAfee situation. In the lead up to WrestleMania 42, something happened that put a completely different kind of pressure on the entire WWE roster. Not just Punk. CM Punk revealed the existence of discontent and contempt backstage in WWE. In the lead-up to WrestleMania 42, the company's creative team threw a curveball by introducing Pat McAfee as part of the Randy Orton-Cody Rhodes feud. McAfee was revealed as Orton's advisor, who was constantly on the phone with the Viper ever since he turned heel on SmackDown. On April 3, the 38-year-old NFL punter and former WWE commentator made his return to television after several months of being away. McAfee had previously claimed that the business had passed him by and did not need him anymore. After turning up unannounced, McAfee attacked Cody Rhodes, after which he cut a promo about how Randy Orton plans to revive WWE. He also brought up the company's struggles with selling out WrestleMania 42 tickets. Several reports later confirmed that McAfee was introduced into the storyline at the behest of Ari Emanuel, the CEO and executive chairman of TKO Group and McAfee's agent. This is the part where the backstage frustration goes beyond Punk's personal creative direction and becomes something much bigger. An outside executive, someone above the creative team, above Triple H, essentially pushed a celebrity into a major WrestleMania storyline. And that celebrity then went on national TV and criticized WWE's own product, their ticket sales struggles, and the general state of the company. Later in the night, an irate Cody Rhodes cut a promo, calling McAfee's reveal as Orton's mystery guy underwhelming. On the subsequent Raw episode, CM Punk shared his thoughts about Pat McAfee with the WWE Universe. While speaking on the All the Smoke podcast, CM Punk revealed why it was important for him to address the Pat McAfee issue, as a way to stand up for his company. What prompted this was an overall feeling from not just me, or not just the boys, but hair and makeup, production, management, the crew. That quote is a window into a locker room that felt disrespected. Not just the wrestlers, but the production staff, the makeup artists, the crew members who make Monday Night Raw happen every single week. All of them, according to Punk, felt the sting of what McAfee had done and who had put him there. And Punk, being Punk, decided to say something about it on national television. This is who CM Punk is. This has always been who CM Punk is. The creative frustrations that are playing out right now in 2026 didn't materialize overnight. They are the product of a slow build, a series of booking decisions and storyline detours that, brick by brick, constructed the wall that now sits between CM Punk and WWE creative. To understand the full scope of it, you have to go back to the beginning of his return, to the promise of what this second run was supposed to be, and then trace the detour it took. Punk made his mission statement quite clear upon returning to WWE in November 2023. His sole intentions were to capture championships and make money, not friends. He'd also have the opportunity to close out his iconic career on his terms after walking out abruptly a decade earlier. That is a clear, simple mandate. Come back, win the title, make money, retire on your terms. It is the kind of return arc that writes itself. All signs pointed to him winning the World Heavyweight Championship from Rollins at WrestleMania 40, but a freak injury he sustained in the Men's Royal Rumble that January forced the company to pivot and hold off on the Rollins vs. Punk program. The Second City Saint instead shifted his focus toward Drew McIntyre, the man responsible for putting him on the shelf in storyline. The injury derailed the first major chapter of his return before it could even get started, but the McIntyre feud that replaced it turned out to be something extraordinary. Their ruthless rivalry carried WWE programming for the better part of the year, and culminated with an epic Hell in a Cell match at Bad Blood in October. His unforeseen feud with Drew McIntyre was arguably WWE's most consistent creative hit of 2024, and most of his matches and promos throughout the year were well received. So the 2024 chapter worked. Despite the detour, despite the injury, despite everything, the product was strong. The audiences were engaged. CM Punk, as a performer, was delivering at the highest level. And then 2025 started, and the cracks began to show. Coming into 2025, his focus was firmly on Seth Rollins, and although it resulted in some memorable, must-see moments, it seems almost as if the powers that be lost sight of where Punk fits in the grand scheme of things, both currently and in the long run. His bad blood with Rollins appears to be no closer to being over. The renewal of his rivalry with John Cena over the undisputed WWE Championship was rushed and ultimately uneventful. And above all else, he's fallen short almost every time it has mattered most as of late. Rushed and ultimately uneventful. That is a remarkable phrase to attach to a CM Punk and John Cena rivalry. These are two of the most storied performers in the history of professional wrestling, with a genuine history that goes back to some of the most critically acclaimed matches and promos ever produced by the company. And when WWE had the chance to revisit that, to tell a fresh, meaningful chapter of that story, the execution fell flat. Punk is popular enough that a majority of fans won't notice his win-loss record in 2025 wasn't the most stellar. He's reached such an established level that he's hardly hurt by losing as frequently as he has been. But he's still in need of a high-profile victory sooner rather than later. The multi-time world champion last won when it mattered most against Rollins on Raw's Netflix premiere at the onset of the year. He also beat Sami Zayn in an Elimination Chamber qualifier a month later, but otherwise, he lost every other televised match he had in 2025. That includes the Men's Royal Rumble and Elimination Chamber matches, the Steel Cage clash with Rollins in March, the triple threat on Night 1 of WrestleMania 41, a tag team match at Saturday night's main event in May, a Money in the Bank qualifier on Raw in June, and his Night of Champions main event with Cena. That is a staggering list of losses. And while the wrestling business operates on the logic that losses don't always define a performer's standing, especially one of Punk's caliber, the cumulative effect of that kind of booking erodes momentum. It sends a signal. It creates doubt. His booking that year left fans wondering whether he is destined to hold world title gold again before he hangs up his boots, or if he's doomed to remain at a level below the main event scene permanently. And for a man who came back specifically to close out his career with championships, specifically to do things on his own terms, watching that question hover in the air around his character must have been deeply frustrating. Punk has to be extremely careful to not lose that part of his persona that has resonated with the audience for so long, the realness and legitimacy that so many others on the roster lack. It was that quality that elevated him to superstardom in 2011, when he made a name for himself almost overnight with the famed pipe bomb promo. The pipe bomb quality, the sense that when CM Punk speaks, there is real weight behind every word. That is his defining asset. And booking that undermines it is not just a creative misstep. It chips away at the foundation of what makes him special. With Reigns gone most weeks, and with so many WrestleMania matches being hyped through the same old weekly brawls between opponents, the main event storyline needed something more to keep going. The latest direction wasn't delivering. Even the WrestleMania 42 build, the biggest match of his second run, had critics questioning whether the creative team was doing justice to the talent involved. The first hint that the Punk and Reigns storyline had some weaknesses was when the champ brought up the death of Roman's real-life father, Sika, at the end of a promo. A cheap tactic, a lazy shortcut, the kind of creative move that Punk himself had called out weeks earlier on that Chicago radio show. The pattern was becoming impossible to ignore. Here's what makes CM Punk different from virtually every other performer in professional wrestling when it comes to creative frustrations. He does not suffer in silence. He never has. And the history of what happens when Punk reaches his breaking point with WWE is one of the most dramatic stories the wrestling business has ever produced. On a seemingly ordinary night in June 2011, one man sat alone on the Monday Night Raw stage and forever changed the sport of professional wrestling by delivering a 6-minute promo laying out all his issues with WWE and its superstars. CM Punk's pipe bomb promo quickly turned one of wrestling's slowest periods into must-watch television, leading to one of the most consequential moments not only in WWE's storied history, but professional wrestling as a whole. On June 27, 2011, the WWE Universe witnessed one of the greatest tirades of all time. When CM Punk clasped the microphone in his hands, it became more than just a mouthpiece to speak to the crowd and the millions of viewers watching worldwide. The mic became his dangerous weapon, his pipe bomb. That original segment blurred the lines between storyline and reality. Punk openly called out backstage politics, spoke about his frustrations with WWE leadership, referenced other wrestling companies, and questioned the direction of the company, all while appearing to go off script. The promo famously ended with his microphone being cut off mid-sentence, which only made the moment feel even more unpredictable to fans watching live. Punk notoriously sat cross-legged on the WWE Raw stage that evening and aired his grievances about the company and some of the people in power, specifically targeting Vince McMahon, John Laurinaitis, Triple H, and The Rock. The backstage reaction tells you everything about the kind of electricity that promo created. Punk recalled, "Backstage is normally just buzzing with people in the hallways. It was empty, and I remember looking around like, geez, what's going on? And I walked past the curtain through Gorilla, and everybody in the company was jammed into the tunnel, waiting to see me come through Gorilla, because they figured the same thing. They were like, oh man, this is gonna get real. And the first person I see is Chef Robert Irvine, because he's there with Gail Kim, and he just looks like he just got through a Dorian Yates chest workout, and he's all fired up. Even people who don't watch wrestling were frozen in place, waiting to see what came next. That is the power of an authentic, unfiltered CM Punk. The fallout from that first pipe bomb changed everything for Punk. It pushed him into the center of WWE programming during the summer of 2011. and led directly into his WWE Championship match against John Cena at Money in the Bank in Chicago. A match still remembered as one of the greatest of all time. CM Punk is not new to dropping pipe bombs. In his first stint with the Stamford promotion, he cut a promo on the June 27, 2011 episode of Raw, where he spoke about his problems with the company. He had also called out the higher-ups for disrespecting several of the talents, resulting in their departure. His 2011 promo cemented his position as a main eventer, even setting up a WWE Championship match against John Cena at Money in the Bank in his hometown of Chicago. The lesson from 2011 is a complicated one. On one hand, it worked. It turned CM Punk from a respected upper mid-carder into one of the hottest acts in professional wrestling overnight. On the other hand, the frustrations that motivated it never truly went away. Over the course of the next 3 years, the Chicago native grew increasingly frustrated with WWE, eventually leaving the company in early 2014. CM Punk abruptly left the WWE on January 27, 2014, the day after the Royal Rumble pay-per-view. It was later reported that he told Vince McMahon and Triple H that he was heading home. The longtime fan favorite cited injuries and frustrations with WWE creative as reasons for his decision to leave. Punk pointed to a mix of issues with WWE, alleged medical negligence, creative frustrations, and what he felt was a lack of respect. He was especially vocal about being passed over for WrestleMania main events, in favor of part-timers like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. All of it eventually pushed CM Punk to walk away, sparking a much bigger conversation across the wrestling world about how the industry leader treats its talent. The man does not walk away quietly. He does not bite his tongue and cash his checks. He says something through a promo, through a podcast, through a radio appearance, through a pointed absence. He always finds a way to make his dissatisfaction known. And in 2026, with WWE Creative, having shuffled his position on the card after WrestleMania, with his lane blocked by the rise of Gunther and the crowning of Roman Reigns, the question is, what form his message takes this time? The answer so far has been the most eloquent of all: silence. Punk's schedule and creative were shifted after WWE made the decision to move Gunther to SmackDown, along with bringing Jacob Fatu to Raw to feud with Roman Reigns. These were not decisions made to sideline Punk permanently. They were decisions made to serve other storylines, stories that had developed their own momentum, their own heat, their own audiences demanding to see them play out. Another strong possibility is creative uncertainty. After losing to Roman Reigns, Punk's next direction needed to feel meaningful. You cannot follow a WrestleMania main event with something that feels secondary. WWE may not have had a storyline ready that matched his stature. That is a real problem. And it is a problem that speaks to something deeper, about how WWE has been managing one of its most valuable assets. The rise of the Gunther and Cody Rhodes rivalry changed the creative map. Gunther's attack repositioned him as the primary threat in the championship conversation. That development closed the lane that many expected Punk to occupy. By focusing on Gunther and Rhodes, the company streamlined its narrative. That decision, however, left Punk temporarily without a defined path. It is not a demotion. It is a shift in timing. That distinction between demotion and timing is the one that WWE is clearly banking on. And based on the available reporting, there is no indication of backstage conflict, no indication of a walkout, no indication that this is 2014 all over again. At this stage, there has been no confirmation of injury, suspension, or departure. The reporting suggests this is not punishment or fallout from backstage issues. Instead, it appears to be a combination of rest, creative recalibration, and long-term planning. But here's the thing about CM Punk. The official line and the actual tension are not always the same thing. This is a man who, even when he is cooperating, finds ways to make sure people know what he thinks. The radio appearance calling out WWE's creative tropes happened while he was the reigning World Heavyweight Champion, with a WrestleMania main event match in his immediate future. He was not an aggrieved employee burning bridges. He was the top star of the flagship show, taking a public shot at the creative philosophy of the very company writing his storylines. That takes a particular kind of confidence, or a particular kind of frustration, probably both. To the surprise of many, there hasn't even been smoke, let alone any fires to put out. If anything, He's been a model employee contractor for WWE, headlining WrestleMania multiple times, including absolutely carrying this year's show in Las Vegas. And that is the tension at the heart of this entire situation. CM Punk, for all his history, for all the chaos that followed him through AEW, for all the scars left over from the 2014 walkout, has been, by every account, a professional during this second run. He has shown up. He has delivered. He has headlined the biggest shows and produced some of the most compelling television the company has aired in years. CM Punk remains one of WWE's most influential personalities. His promo ability, fan connection, and history ensure that any return will feel significant. That reality gives the company flexibility. They do not need to rush him into the first available storyline. In that environment, holding Punk back until the right moment may ultimately strengthen whatever chapter comes next. For now, his absence continues to fuel discussion. That alone reflects his value. When a performer can step away and still dominate conversation, it speaks to their standing within the industry. Last week, WrestleVotes reported in a Q&A session that Punk will return for SummerSlam 2026. The marquee pay-per-view takes place at US Bank Stadium in Minneapolis, Minnesota, on the August 1-2 weekend. The blue brand has fallen off quite a bit as 2026 has marched into summer. That is not a small detail. WWE television, the same television that Punk carried every week as World Heavyweight Champion, has measurably declined in quality since he stepped away from it. The audience feels the gap. The critics feel the gap. Even the commentators who cover the product week to week are noticing it. And therein lies the message, the shocking message that CM Punk has sent to WWE creative. Through everything he has done and said in the past several months, the public critique of creative tropes, the call to end the Elimination Chamber format, the defense of the locker room in the Pat McAfee situation, the quiet but pointed absence from television, from European tour advertising, from the building itself. The message is this: you need me more than you realize. And if you don't figure out where I fit in this picture, if you don't put the work in to give this chapter the meaning it deserves, I am perfectly comfortable making that absence felt. Even as he enters the twilight of his incredibly accomplished in-ring career, CM Punk still has plenty more to offer WWE and its audience, and already has had a celebrated and successful return run with the company. That is the optimistic read, and the facts support it. Punk has not walked out. He has not publicly torched bridges. He is advertised for July Raw episodes and SummerSlam. The plan, by every credible report, is for him to return and be a central part of the company's second half of 2026. But plans in this business change. Creative direction shifts. And if the storyline waiting for CM Punk when he comes back does not match what he believes he has earned, if the chapter that follows WrestleMania feels like a step down rather than a step forward, history tells us very clearly what kind of man CM Punk is when that happens. He sits down, he picks up a microphone, and he tells the truth as he sees it. The wrestling world has been on the receiving end of that truth before. CM Punk's pipe bomb promo quickly turned one of wrestling's slowest periods into must-watch TV. The first pipe bomb didn't just change CM Punk's career. It shifted the entire conversation about what professional wrestling could be when a performer decided to drop the pretense and speak plainly. If WWE creative doesn't get this right, if the story they have waiting for the Second City Saint falls short of what he has delivered for this company across 2 full years of headline-level output, the next message from CM Punk to WWE will not be subtle. It never is.